What does it say in verse 13?
He says their evil is shouting to me.
That's right. He says there's an outcry. That's the second time that language is used in Genesis. Do you remember the first? When Cain kills Abel, when God has that conversation with Cain, what does he say? He says, your brother's blood cries out to me. The idea that any time innocent blood is shed, any time an innocent person suffers, do you think God doesn't know about it? Every act of injustice, every act of abuse, every time a mob terrorizes and harms innocent people, he says, God is hearing every single outcry. Coming is the day of... So he says here, God is responding to the outcry. Verse 14. So Lot went out and said to his sons-in-law, who were to marry his daughters. Okay, we got to stop here. What did Lot just try to do with his daughters? Man, he was ready to just kick them to the curb to unimaginable abuse. And here he goes and says, but let me go make sure my son-in-laws are okay. And do the son-in-laws know what the father of their future wives just did? Well, notice the way this is worded. The text indicates, we already discussed, how many men in Sodom were outside the door? All of them. Who does that include? The son-in-laws. The future son-in-laws are part of the mob that are ready to terrorize the messengers and anyone in their path. And Lot goes back out to those men and say, come with me. So we find that this perversion, this wickedness, this evil has infected even Lot's own household. Please.
I even hate to let these words come to my lips, but in verse 7, what did Lot call that mob?
Brothers.
Brother.
That's right.
In other words, brother in what?
Yes.
You could, well, it's a crime.
Yeah.
It would not be a far jump to imagine that Lot himself
was involved in that wickedness. Agreed. Good point. That's another step in the progression, right? First, I'm outside the city looking in. Then I'm at the gate. Then I'm in the city. And then I'm calling the people of the city my brothers. That's how sin operates. It's always a progression the longer we stay on the path. And yeah, good point. Thank you. So let's continue on. Let's get through this section. So it says in verse 14, when he tells his son-in-laws, future son-in-laws, up, get out of this place, for the Lord is about to destroy the city. But he seemed to his son-in-laws to be jesting. Man, that's some funny joke. That who's going to judge us? God can't even judge us. What's wrong with what we're doing? We're just doing what feels good. We're just doing what feels right. We're just doing what we want to do. We're bigger, we're stronger, so who are you to say we can't do whatever we want to people weaker than us? That is the worldview that leads to wickedness and evil and destruction. This is one of several examples we've already seen in Genesis when somebody hears the word of the Lord and what do? What's their response? They laugh. You remember Abraham laughs, Sarah laughs. Here, the son-in-laws laugh. That the ways of God oftentimes seem comical to the sons and daughters of man. But that's not because God is twisted, it's because we're twisted. And it can make the things of God seem like a joke. And how often we see in our world today the things of God treated like a joke. They're mocked, they're laughed at, they're scoffed at. And yet that doesn't change the fact God's will is going to be done.
God had lost his credibility.
You would sure hope so, right? Absolutely. Verse 15. As morning dawned, the angels urged Lot, saying, up. Okay, So when did the angels come to relay this message to Lot? When was it? Evening. It says, now the morning is dawning. The sun's rising. And he's still in the city. And they say, up, take your wife, your 2 daughters who are here, lest you be swept away, saving the city. And God has given you the message of escape. But God has not forced you to respond to His mercy, to His grace. He says, you have to decide that you're going to respond yourself. So now's the time. Today's the day of salvation, he might even say. Now, verse 16. This idea that yet another sign of the progression of wickedness, that not only is Sodom his home, he doesn't want to leave a place even as wicked as this, because it's ingrained in who he is. But he lingers, and it says in the rest of verse 16, the men seized him and his wife and his 2 daughters by the hand, the Lord being merciful to him, and they brought him out and set him outside the city. So, shockingly, in a passage that seems maybe to go beyond how we think God normally operates. You know, we always say God respects free will, and that's true, He does. But who's the one taking the initiative here? It's God. And He said, the messengers of God take them by the hand and essentially drag them out kicking and screaming. And what is that attributed to? Why does God do it? What does it say? Mercy. And here's the heart of the matter. The Bible, does it ever sugarcoat the wickedness of the characters in it? No. Shockingly no. I mean, it goes to degrees like, I didn't even want to know all of the things we know about some of the characters in the Bible. And yet we find that Lot here is presented as unrighteous, wicked, sexually perverse, a terrible father. And here God is going to this great lengths to take him by the hand. And we ask the question, why? Well, let me answer your question with another question. Who deserves mercy? You know, the mercy by definition is not getting what you deserve. If anybody deserved mercy, they wouldn't be receiving mercy. You get what I'm saying? So the Bible is very clear. Who are we to expect and then begrudge to and say here on a Wednesday night? And I'm up here teaching on a Wednesday night. How did that happen? Did it happen because we're just all really good people and